Really excited to show you the Fairlight audio improvements, everything we have in Davinci Resolve 15. I need about an hour and a half to do that, and they gave me 15 minutes, so I'm just going to talk fast and show you as much as I can right now, and then I'll also be back there, I can show you some more right on the stations. But this is super exciting. So right now I'm on the edit page, and let's say the edit is done, I've got my scene cut, and now it's time for audio post. And if you all think about what your workflow is to now get to audio post, I'll show you mine. All I have to do is click right there, and I'm in audio post, okay? Don't have to send out any videos, no references, no waiting, no passing around of files, I'm there. So right now, all you're looking at is the Fairlight timeline, which is pretty cool, right? I can see everything right there, but I'm going to show you some more features. At this moment, if I go up to the meters, which is actually my monitoring panel, this will show you your video. So whatever you had on your edit page, all those tracks are going to be showing right here, and I can play it. I can also pop this out if I want to. It shows all my audio tracks and outputs. I can break this out, I can move it around, resize as needed, right? So that's a free-flowing thing, but obviously you can also go out to a screen, so whatever setup you have, it works. And I can now just close that up. So I can show them or not if I want to. Let's go to the inspector. What's cool about the inspector is it will let me see parameters of any selected clip or track. I'll just select this clip, and if you look, this will show me my volume. It also shows me my pitch, which is something that's new in Davinci Resolve 15, and that means I can go up or down 24 semitones, that's 2 full octaves, on any clip, which is really nice. I can even use that on VOs and things, just to take it down about just one semitone, just to take the edge off or whatever. I can do that on any clip. I've got my 4-band EQ on every single clip, and now we also have something new and exciting, our native Resolve effects. So we now have an entire set of audio plugins that come with Davinci Resolve. And the cool thing about these is not only do they work really well, I happen to have a de-esser on here, which, how can we live without our de-esser, right? So I have my de-esser, but what's cool about these is they work on all platforms. So Davinci Resolve 15, whether it's on Windows, Mac, or Linux, this will work. You don't have to bring plugins with you, they're there and they will work exactly the same. The projects will go back and forth seamlessly, which is nice. So this is just one of my effects. Now I'm going to show you something else. Of course, we have our mixer. I'll get back to the mixer. I just want to show you on the right side, that's where you keep your mixer. There's a channel strip for every track, and you can use it just like you would any other high-end mixer. So I'll show you some more of those features. Let's pop over to the left, because there's new stuff in here. On the left side, you can select any clip in your media browser, and your media pool is basically the same on every single page, but in this case, we've added something awesome, which is we now have our audio that we can see. I'm just looking for a clip that actually has some audio. But if you select a clip, you can actually see your waveform right here in the source viewer. So if you had a video clip and you just needed to go grab a different line from another take or something that you're going to slip in there, you can go in there, you can mark your ins and outs. These are the video clips, but it also works with your audio clips as well. So here, depending on what I select, it also shows the channels. So depending on what I have, if I have a stereo clip, I'll see both channels from my stereo. If I happen to have 6-channel audio on a sound effect or something, I'll see that as well, right here. And you can also change the zoom level right here, so I can zoom in further or in or out of my waveform if I need to select it a little better. Mark your ins and outs. And one more awesome thing is, let's say I have this 6-channel drone. So if I were playing this 6-channel drone and I said, wow, okay, I want to use this and I want to bring it into my timeline, if I bring it into a stereo track, it's only going to play those top 2 channels. I have to create the right track. Well, now with Fairlight in Davinci Resolve 15, it'll do it automatically. So whatever channels I have in my source, if I drag it to the timeline, to the empty space, just right here into the track, you'll see let go, and it automatically makes, there's my 5.1 track with all of my channels exposed. So that's a huge thing. Then I can edit more like sounds into that same track, but the idea is I can do that instantly. I don't have to think about it or work it too hard. Now something else is, I just have a few sound effects included in my project, but how many of you have those thousands of sound effects in libraries externally, right? You either bought the library or you're using it for work, and you also need to access it here. Well, you can now, so that's another huge thing in your workflow. So right here, we now have a sound library where you can access your different you can access your different sound effects libraries. You just create your database. It will bring in and the metadata, and it will index that for you, and then suddenly you can search through all of those clips right here. In this case, I have 2 libraries. Let me just look for something. And here's one of my libraries. I'm just looking for something simple so I can show you how easily I can do that. Let me switch libraries. And I'll find a Foley effect that I needed for this track. Here it is right there. That's the one. So you can preview it, but what else is awesome is, let's say you're going through your library and you say, okay, this is the one I want to try. You can audition it right in your timeline. All you have to do is move your playhead where you need it, select the track. In this case, I'll select that track, and there's an audition button, so that will let you just audition it right there from within the sound library. And so, did I do it? Let's try that again. Yeah, actually click the button, it'll work better. So if you audition it, it'll put it in there for you, then you can listen to it. If it didn't work for you, you're not committed. You just have to say cancel and it'll go away. Or you can commit. So either way, you can mark your ins and outs. So you have full access and everything you would want to use to audition and find the right sound effect without having to bring all that stuff into your project or on your computer even. So that's super easy. Let's go ahead and look at a few improvements right in the timeline itself. One of the things that we can do now is, and there's a lot, is, let me zoom in a little bit here, is one of the cool things is you can now use a fixed playhead. So if you want the timeline to scroll underneath your playhead instead of playing it straight across, you can. This is awesome when you're on the consoles, if you're working with a really long timeline. If you're just listening and watching and you're trying to figure out what's going on. By the way, I have it dimmed right now. If I were to turn the dim off, what the dim button does here at the top, you have your mute. Your dim is it takes it down by 20 decibels, so that if someone asks you a question, you can continue to lay down your tracks or be doing whatever you're doing, and it's still playing, meters still work, it just dims it. This is how it would actually sound. Okay, much louder. So that's really useful. And that's your fixed playhead. There's also, right here, I just brought up the video track. So now at the top, if you need as a reference your video clips from the edit page, even if you have multiple tracks of video, those will also show up here as these blue bars. Each one's an individual clip in the track. So you have that now as a reference as well, which is, like I said, when you're editing, there's times where you need that as a guide. It's right here. Another really awesome thing we have is, let's go down to our scrollers. We now have video and audio scrollers, and what makes these awesome, let me just go down a little further. I'm going to play this.
Boom, there's this explosion.
And you know what is also fun is, let me go ahead and break out my viewer, so I'll have that as well. So I have multiple references here.
2 hours ago. Boom, there's this explosion and it surrounded the whole ship.
So I have a sound effect that I want to happen right when we cut to the ship, but obviously I'm not there. I didn't do it quite right. So what these are is, this is a video scroller of every single frame, and I can use that as a guide, and I can see it right against any track's audio. You can have up to 2 at a time. There's a pull down at the bottom that lets you choose which one you're using. So I can grab this scroller and I can just go, wait, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to be here. And see how I can move that around and I can see that it's not quite lined up. I'm close. Does close work in audio? No. So close doesn't work. So I can drag this, or you can double click a frame, and if I double click a frame, it automatically jumps to the playhead. So these are just scrollers that you can see, and obviously we can tell that this sound effect does not line up. And if you work in audio, or if you listen to audio, you'll know that that's not a good thing. Now if I want to move this, I could just come over to this clip right here, which happens to be the sound effect I'm working with, and then I can move it into position. So there. I'll close this up. So now I just moved it into position so you can see it, and then when I play it, I know it's going to be right where I wanted it. So very easy to work with. Also, as you're working with your clips, if you select them, you'll notice when you move things around, they become semi-transparent, so you can really tell what you're working with. Anytime you drag the edges, you can actually see your entire clip, so you can see anything else that's there on that particular clip while you're working with it, which is really nice. So those are big features. Would you use the scrollers on everything? Probably not, but there's those moments where you need that, it's there. So I'm going to turn those off for a minute. Again, those are all under this menu. And instead, I'm going to jump, actually, while I'm here, let me show you something else, because people have been asking for it, is what about working on those individual clips, the audio for those clips? If I'm on a clip like this one and I want to raise or lower the levels, I could just drag right here on my level curve and I can make that louder. But you notice in this one it's very uneven. I need to bring up some of the end of that level. So let me zoom that in even more for you. There, you can really see that. So you can option click and just add a few keyframes like you always could, and I can raise that up. So now I've made that one sound a little better. But something else we have that's brand new is normalization on every clip. So if you need to normalize your clips, I can just right click and choose normalization, and it's going to normalize the audio levels, let's say to 6, and there. I just normalized the level on that particular clip. It will also work if I've already keyframed it. I can normalize it with the keyframes. It'll keep those intact as I go, which is awesome. And what if I have a group of clips, like right here, and I want to normalize all of those? You can do that as well. And it's smart because it now gives me that option. When I normalize, I can do it relative, meaning it's going to look at all of them as though they were one clip, or I can do them independently and it'll do each one independent depending on what I'm doing. So for those of you who use normalization to basically take the peaks to a very specific level and everything else will fall into place, we can do that now. So there's also the ability to copy and paste attributes. I know people were looking for the ability to copy and paste attributes, so I can copy them from one clip and paste attributes to another, and the paste attributes give you the option of volume, your plugins, or your EQ. So especially if you're working with dialogue or different tracks, a certain mic, and you want to drop the same EQ on all of them, you can just copy and paste the attributes across. So again, that's a big deal. If you know why it's a big deal, then you're really excited about that. So there, I just did a volume attribute from one to the other. You can also right-click and remove attributes as well. So, and yes, I'm very passionate about audio. A lot of people are like, yeah, audio. So here, I can remove that attribute as well, just like that. All right, there's more. Let's go to something else that's very exciting. Obviously, when we're working with our projects, one of the things that happens is dialogue. We can go so far with our dialogue, but sometimes we have to actually replace it, right? And then we have that process of automatic dialogue replacement. It's called automatic because it's supposed to be really easy and automatic, right? Not manually. If you've ever had to do it manually, one step at a time, you want automatic dialogue replacement. And here we have an entire ADR toolset now built into the Fairlight page in Davinci Resolve 15, and it works amazing. So it's got everything in here that you would use for your ADR sessions. So if you're doing Foley recording or dialogue recording, you're all set. You can, let's start up with the setup here. I can set a pre-roll. I can set my post-roll. I can choose a record track, in this case, the ADR track. I can choose my source. Let's see, here's my ADR track. Here's the guide track I'm going to use. I also, for my record source, once you set a track, you can pick your source. So if you have a mic hooked up, it'll automatically do the patching and everything for you. You don't have to go hunting around and figure out how to do that. You also can name your files before you record them, so that's all done. You can choose and create characters, and here's the fun stuff, is you can also add your count in, your streamers. I like to check them all because I can. But basically, any of the audiovisual cues you need for the talent, because they need something, and everybody's different, right? Some people only want the beep right before they have to speak, and some people want the lead in with the beeps before it goes. You can choose either one. You also can have a number countdown if someone really wants a number countdown, or streamers. So you can set all of that up. Just pick whichever ones you want, or all of them, and you're all set. Let's go to our list. You can import a CSV file right here, and that way you can import it from another document if you already have the script set up for your different characters, or you can create it right here if you want to, and those are your different cues. I'm going to make one right here, just set an in, mark an out, and say new cue, and it'll automatically create one for me. I can then decide who the character is. I can write in the text, and it's all set for me. So you can build it yourself. I can also export my list if I'm done. So if you have assistant, someone sitting around making all your cues, they can export that. You can bring it into your own system. So let me go to that cue that so if you go to a cue, any cue you go to, it's going to automatically jump to that cue. And then once you're ready, you can go over to the record settings, and in the record settings, you have different options. Obviously, you start recording, but who's ever ready for that? So we also have our rehearsal. So let me bring up my viewer so you can see it. I'll just pop it over here to the side, and then I can do a rehearsal.
Are you sure?
A, to identify the person I'm speaking with.
All right, so you can get all of the elements that you need for your recording session, and that was just a rehearsal, but you can record your takes one after the other into the same track, and they just stack on top of each other in the track as separate layers. And from there, you can choose them. If you have one that's a dud, you can delete it if you want to. And I'm not recording here, obviously it's not the best environment, but the list shows up right here, and you actually can rate them as well. There's a star rating. So if you have an awesome take, you can just quickly mark that as a 5-star. If you got one that was a no good, you can not rate it or just give it a 1. There's no smiley faces or frowns or anything like that, but there are star rating systems. And you also have in your list, you can also mark things as done. So when you're finished, you can check it off as you go. So you always know how much of your session you have left. So this is really awesome. Again, it's built right in here. If you don't use ADR, it's still there if you ever need it, right? Now let's talk about something else that happens when we're doing our work. I'm going to jump to another timeline. Which one do I want? I want this one. Is something else that happens is, okay, we can replace things, but every now and then you get stuff that just you got to work with anyways. If I see a waveform that looks like that, I already know what's coming. Any of you in audio have probably seen that before. I'm going to share. Anyone want to guess what that sound might be?
Like core.
You hear it? That's that lovely 60 hertz sound that gets, either the wires were too close together, someone didn't follow the rules, laying their audio cables with the power cables, or for whatever reason we have that nice 60 hertz power line hum. It happens, it's 50 hertz in Europe, right? But here it's 60. Well, luckily we have our plugins. So I'm going to hop over and finally show you guys our awesome plugins. Let me see if I can zoom in on those for a second. So here we have our awesome new Fairlight effects plugins, and we've got everything. We got the fun stuff too, the flangers and modulators where you can do all kinds of neat stuff. But we also have the necessities, right? We have our de-esser, our noise reduction, which is fabulous, and then we also have our de-hummer. So I thought for this example, the de-hummer would work great. So I'll show you that right now. Just drop it onto the clip. Anytime you do, you automatically get your interface. They're very easy to use. If you've ever used a plugin, they're easy to use. And if you've never used a plugin, they're also easy to use because they're fairly self-explanatory. This one has 2 presets already for 60 kilohertz or 50, so you can just click that and just dial the amount. I'm going to do it for you live. So you're going to have to deal with the hum for a little longer. 60 hertz.
Like core.
And it's gone. Okay, and you can turn it on and off, just click the bypass.
Core.
Okay, so that's quick, and you can also adjust the frequency. So if you have something other than 50 or 60 hertz, you can use it on that as well. So all of the plugins are this easy and awesome to work with. Let's show you a couple of other things that are really the big ticket items. I want to get to close this up. I'm going to jump ahead. Let's see which timeline I'm going to show you since I don't have much time. In my mixer, things that you can do, you can also create your aux buses. So right here I have a reverb on an aux bus, so I can throw all my tracks over to the same reverb. I'll show you what our reverb looks like. It's awesome. You can make submixes as often as you need to for, this is our reverb, pretty awesome. You can change the size very quickly, and you can adjust your settings to make it a larger or smaller signal. So anything that you would normally do in your audio mixing, you can absolutely do here. So, it's not hard at all to work with. So there's my bus. Now, when you're finished, we need to be able to bounce our tracks and create stems, right? I've got 15 dialogue tracks, or maybe I have 3 dialogue tracks. I now need to create a dialogue stem. You can now do all your bouncing inside of Fairlight as well. Just select, right here, I'll just solo these 2 tracks and go to the timeline menu, and that's where you can bounce your mix. So I can bounce it to whatever track I want. In this case, it's just going to pop down to a lower track, but then I have that as a stem, which basically renders all your processing, everything down. It's just like you would do with effects. Only in audio, we call it bouncing because we make a new file with everything baked in, basically. So that would be your bounce mix to track, and you can choose what you're going to bounce. And the last thing I want to show you, which is super exciting, is let's zip to the end of this project, and let's say I have my finished stems. Here's my finished project with all my stems. This is just a stereo mix right here. Once you're done, you can check your levels. Let me bring up my meters. And when you bring up your meters, you've got your loudness meters at the top where you can check your loudness. Here I have my stereo mix, and then I have my 3 separate stereo stems for dialogue, effects, and music. I can check those and make sure everything's dead on before we say it's done. And I also can work with my mono tracks, which we all get those mono tracks. In this case, I have 6. What does that mean? 6 mono tracks, that means I have a 5.1 surround stems. Now what do I do with them? Let's look at our mixer for a moment, and if you look, I have 6.1. I'm actually going to switch to my 5.1 stems right now. I'm going to play this a little bit. I just noticed my LFE is really heavy right now, so you're going to feel it. Okay. The problem is, if you look, I'm only coming out the center channel because these are all panned to the center. So I could manually go through and pan each of these, or we could do it automatically. Before I pan them, though, I want to show you something really awesome. Our panner, you could just double-click it, and you've got a full 3D pan, so I can move my items anywhere I wanted to for that particular track. But this is DaVinci Resolve 15, so if I option double-click, I now have full object-based panning. So if you're working in a multi-speaker, immersive sound environment, which is becoming more and more popular, I now can take any object, and I can pan it anywhere in that space. I know, it's pretty exciting stuff, and the demand is there. So if I have a specific sound effect, I can place it exactly where the audience is going to see, it's going to seem to be. So that's pretty cool. You can also set your boom to only if you need to set your LFE. So let me close this up. Now I want to get these panned properly so I can output my finished project. You can now do that, just go up to Link Group, and this will look at every track, whether you have 150 tracks or 10. It's going to look at them, and any mono track will then show up with green. It's going to say, okay, what do I do with these mono tracks? How are they paired? If it's 2, you can pair them as stereo, and it's basically linking them together so they'll have single fader control. I have 6, so I select one, select the second one, and just do a 5.1 link. And now what I've essentially done is I have linked all these together, properly pan them. Now they have a 5.1 pan setting, so every channel is dead on. If this is my final output, these are dead on. In fact, I'll show you. Let me make sure I don't have anything soloed.
Philip's cryopod has lost power. His oxygen level is critical.
So, pretty cool. So you can feel it, and I did all of that here, or on my laptop, in fact. No, so anyway, so this is pretty exciting stuff that has single fader control, and the best part is all of this audio power is now built into the free version of DaVinci Resolve 15 in your Fairlight page. So if you want to try it out, I mean, it's certainly not cost prohibitive, but it's awesome for your work, whatever level you're using in audio, or even if you're an editor. So check it out. I'm so excited you guys are here, and thank you for staying. Audio is awesome.